My name is Tanya Curry, and this is this week's Acumen Media Report. It's entitled, My South Africa, Distraction from Action. My South Africa, we need to have a word. I'm sorry to say this, but I'm grumpy. I'm one of the patriotic South Africans. I shake off the bad news like a dog out of a bath, and I look always to the beauty of this magnificent country and her people, and then I'm never scared about our future. We are a nation of great fortitude, and we do things differently. We always have. We've survived apartheid. Well, we did better than that, actually. We worked together. And once upon a time, we were a nation of huge promise and a future as bright as the African sun. My country. Today, we are battered and abused. Our government has pushed us too far for too long. It's time to scratch the surface of an horrendous week in the media. Trigger warning, you may not be amused reading this report. On the other hand, you might, but your sense of humor has to be dark, a bit like Eskom. There is an anecdote that my friend shared with me about Joseph Stalin. Stalin allegedly brought a live chicken to a bunch of his advisors, and he then plucked it while it was still alive. The chicken, bleeding and abused, ran away from Stalin. The doors were closed, so it came back to him the minute he offered a chicken feed. His point? This is how easy it is to control a nation. He is known to add, 1 death is a tragedy, 1 million deaths are a statistic. Dreadful story. Some of it may not be true, but the saddest part is that you can relate, my country. I know, it's a depressive beginning for the weekly report. I did say we needed a word because as disgusting as the story is, we are in this very situation. Let's not talk about politics for a minute. It's Mother's Month. 1/3, 1 in 3 of our women suffer domestic abuse. 8 women are killed by their partners every day. That's just by their partners. We have crime rates that are not only catastrophic, but also mind-boggling. The death of our children cannot be a statistic. The death of a sterling nation cannot be a statistic. My country is not a statistic. That's not even why I'm grumpy, because like Stalin's chicken, I've become used to reading these horrific statistics and I carry on. I carry on as Eskom toys with stage 8 and urges us not to use the product we pay handsomely for in the midst of winter. There is no excuse whatsoever for Eskom's tirade on our nation. None. For 30 years, Eskom ran and powered a nation. I don't care what is said about Soweto owing blah blah and how maintenance has not been upheld. This stuff didn't happen yesterday. And for years, we have had electricity. These, my South Africa, are just blatant lies or orchestrated outcomes from the handiwork of the greedy. We own this coal. We are the miners and the truck drivers. We are the people who feed the electricity machine. We are the people who generate the invoices and collect the cash. And then, just as we bend our backs to a point of breaking, we allow our feathers to be plucked. Can someone tell me why? Why exactly is Eskom suddenly a problem 30 years later? Yes, we had load shedding and we whined, but for the most part the lights stayed on. We went from 4 stages now to 8 stages, and now we're told there's going to be 16 stages, and yet we keep pecking. My South Africa. Next year we are encouraged to vote this problem away. Will that work? I doubt it. Corruption is so deeply entrenched in every corner of government that there is no silver bullet that will end this in a few months. So what are we doing? Are we going to watch as those coal trucks leave our port and let people die from the cold in the winter of our discontent? Are we going to watch as our maize gets exported for a higher price than we can afford and see our staple food leave the country en masse? Are we going to continue to watch this unabated greed swallow up our beautiful home? My South Africa, this week we were presented with diversions. Diversions that put a stop to our actions. Diversions that made us chicken out. Senzo Miwe trial. What a shocker. Tefo was back dressed in robes and the disbarred advocate was frog-marched out of the court as we watched Zandi Kumalo try her best not to appear on a live stream. This is such a crazy story. Zandi said she was a celebrity, not sure where she got that from, and that she was happy to have photos taken of her in the corridor of the courtrooms, but did not want herself on camera in the court. For the record, no one has had the camera on them in this courtroom. She went on to say that she did not want audio broadcast live from the court, but this could be tweeted by the journalists. There was no point to Zandi's claim apart from a further delay and an infuriated essay. The judge ruled after 2 days of legal jargon that she would have her audio televised and the camera would remain off her exceptionally popular face. I listened to her story and it doesn't match the other testimonies. At one point she broke down and shouted at the accused, and then she told us how brave she was, and that was that. We wait patiently for the cross-examination. We wait for the excellence of Advocate Mshilolo to see how far Nandi's tears get her. Distraction from action. There will never be justice for Senzo. You couldn't flip a news channel without landing on a court case or an inquiry that demanded attention. I made it through all of them, so I'll condense them so you don't miss anything. Zuma versus Ramaphosa. What a joke. Dali was filibustering for the first team, but the judge had his number and literally cut him short when he exceeded his time. She had had enough of the list of adjectives that only Dali can put together. He told us precious little about the case before us, and he told us a great deal about how exceptional his legal knowledge was. Such a clever guy. And he is. His bank account is full, regardless of how many court cases he has not won or finished. He is the Stalingrad of essay law. On display in the courtroom are a bunch of Zuma stooges, and they clapped like well-trained seals in a dolphin show. All captured, all there just for food. Plucked chickens. The judge said that this was not a circus, and swiftly put an end to that cheering and clapping, and Zuma himself made it to court. A miracle, dear friends. He can actually enter a courtroom without bursting into flames. He's looking well, too, so that's good. No sick note for this trial, my country. Then Thabo Bester turned up in a Burberry hoodie that cost 19,000 Rand as he made a virtual appearance in court. YouTube Court asked the obvious questions. He is a convicted criminal, one that bears the burden of multiple rapes and a murder on his back, yet he is not in orange overalls. Why? And if that wasn't pressing enough, his lawyer asked a ridiculous but fair question. Is this Thabo Bester we see on camera? Can we prove this is him? I don't make this up. This is hard news. He doesn't have an ID, and Thabo Bester, who does have an ID, has been declared dead. Crazy, eh? Dr. Nandi was also on Zoom, no one knows why. She looked beautiful, though, with her makeup on point and a wall of library books behind her. She, too, was dressed for success. This while the other co-accused sat in a cold courtroom like plucked chickens, henpecked and subject to the judge's scrutiny. My South Africa, stop this distraction from action. This case is ridiculous. Switch channels, and you'll find Praveen at Scopa. You'd swear the butter wouldn't melt in Gordon's mouth. He used very big words to explain how Dorata was not the wonderful oak we were told he is. This man was writing books while we were degenerating. Dorata, degenerator, some refer to him as Didonker. Basically, the knight, not the one in shining armor. He wrote a book called Truth to Power. I have a colleague who is reading it, and she said it would be great to count the number of times he uses the personal pronoun I in the book. One thing he is not short of is ego. Scopa continues, and I'm sure it will for years as long as they keep the building's lights on. Plain chicken. Flick the channel and you'll find the 194 inquiry where Madam Busi Kobani appeared on her own, as Udali dropped her, and now she's running around like a headless chicken, desperately seeking new legal counsel. The PP's office has given her a further 4 million Rand to spend on wasting our time. Chicken feed. All this distraction from action left us no time to actually deal with the crime of the century, Eskom. Again, I have so many questions, but why has no wealthy corporate set up a huge wind or solar farm and sold the produce to the masses? Why is Eskom the only solution, even if you have solar? This is a monopoly, and it's stealing from the poor and the rich. There are laws against that. Yet we are watching Tabu, if it is Tabu, and his Burberry. Come on. Can't you see the distraction from action? What would happen if we all stopped paying Eskom? What would happen if we stopped paying taxes? You can bet we'd have attention for a change. What if we stopped being plucked and actually pecked instead? Don't misunderstand my words. I'm not talking about a coup d'etat or leaving South Africa. In fact, quite the opposite. Leave the crooks well alone. These monsters that keep plucking around us. Julius held the presser and told us that we had 2 weeks left until the grid collapses. I saw a presentation that appeared to be from Eskom, filled with contingency plans for a lights-out scenario. I'm not sure if it was fact or fiction, but this 17-page document with all its shadiness also contained this line: there will be no Microsoft Teams, and that was coupled by an emoji. I kid you not, my South Africa. Kenny Kunene and Gates and McKenzie will have you believe that they are the saviors of South Africa. Why? Because one did a clean up in Hillbrow and the other tells us he's the kingmaker for the elections. He's right. They will all end up at the ANC in the end. That's how coalition country works. We've seen it before. We will see it again. When one is in an abusive relationship, there are two components: the bully and the bullied. Here's the thing about bullies. Once they realize you are not a doormat and you stand up, they will not enter the room. The thing about the beaten or the bullied is that they don't realize they can stand tall. Their backs feel broken, so they allow the beating to continue, and they don't know the door is theirs to shut. And then there was this. Our children came last in the international reading assessment across the world. Last. Our future leaders are at the bottom of the reading pile, and we are okay with that. It is no wonder we made a massive spelling error on our new banknotes. Even our Reserve Bank doesn't care enough to do a spell check. The original and correct spelling was on the old banknote, so there really was no excuse. The rand defaced. There was some fun this week. The US backpedaled fast on their South African ear bashing about Russia and Lady Ra. I wonder who called whom, eh? Putin was definitely on the phone, that bit is certain. The Yanks changed their narrative faster than you can say Eskom's a push. The damage to our rand did not have the same regeneration speed, though, and one has to wonder, was that planned? You become cynical when you read so much nonsense every day. Across the seas, Harry and Meghan had a car chase with the paparazzi in New York. That's funny. It's not possible to have a car chase in New York. Johnny Depp received a warm welcome at the Cannes Festival, and he even had a little tear. That was cute. I'm going to try and find the funny underwater this weekend because this was depressing, eh? Can't all be giggles, guys. It's time to stop distraction and call for action. I'm Tonya Curry, and thank you for scratching the surface with me at Acumen Media.